Hey y'all, Biohack here. This is going to be a little bit of a different video. In today's video, I'm going to walk through how I go about building a new champion like this White Queen Ankora I just finished the Masteries on, hit level 60, and booked out for this CVC. We're not just going to talk about like what sort of stats to put on the champion, but actually go through like what are the mechanics of how do you actually figure out specifically what gear you want to put on the champion using the Hell Hades optimizer and sort of the strategies I use to actually go through the process of building a new champion to fit a certain role on my account. So, first things first that you want to do is go ahead and take any souls you have, put them on the champion, choose your blessing, because these are going to give you stats, which will determine things like the optimal way to maximize your survivability and your damage or whatever for things like that when you're using the HH optimizer, because whether you want more defense or whether you want more HP, for example, when it's deciding different gear pieces, can depend on what your existing stats look like. So for White Queen Ankora, I did pick up the 5-star soul from the Hero's Path event. I have decided to go for temporal chains on this particular champion, and I guess I should talk about what I want this champion to do. So I am mostly interested in building champions for Live Arena, and my supports for Live Arena are pretty set in stone. For the most part, I pretty much always use Kaja, Warlord, and Arbiter. Kaja and Arbiter are turn meter boosters, and Warlord, they also have a revive. Warlord is my lockout. I then try and speed tune my nukers so that, for example, if my Kaja goes first, my Kaja's faster than my Arbiter, it would go Kaja, Arbiter, and my Georgiad would then be speed tuned to match their speed and go immediately afterwards without having the ability to be cut in. And then he could push turn meter back on the enemy with his A2, and then my next nuker would go. That's sort of the idea behind I build my accounts. However, sometimes in Live Arena, people like to steal some of the champions that I want to use in my Go First teams, and then I need to adapt to that and use something else. So, in particular, I want to use White Queen Ankora to counter teams with Lockout, people who can get access to my Warlord before I'm able to get it, and people who want to run squishy speed teams in a that challenge me, people who might steal my Arbiter, for example, before I can get access to her, or perhaps my Kaja, although people rarely take Kaja. She's not the most popular champion in Live Arena. So what do I want to do to make Ankora the answer for those kind of teams when someone is countering me by taking one of the supports I want to use? Well, I want to build her in a super, super high resistance 2-turn stone skin, with the idea being that if I want to, I can let them win the speed race. They can take their turn, nuke my team down, and then even if they have a lockout, which most people running speed teams in Live Arena probably will, they can lock out my champions. My White Queen Ankora will resist that lockout. She will then revive, hopefully, White King Narcisse, because I would want to put him on the team, completely reset the cooldowns on all of his abilities, giving him full turn meter, pushing back the enemy turn meter, and then allowing him to one-shot the enemy team afterwards, or at the very least, kill all their nukers, and then whittle down the supports until she can come back around and get my other reviver back up and revive my team. That sort of thing. So the build I need to put her in to accomplish that goal, and I do not think this is the only way to build White Queen Ankora, I think it's just one potential option, is super high resistance, slow 2-turn stone skin. And so that's the build that I'm going to show you how to build today. The blessing for that with the temporal chains is because the way I have my Narcisse built, I have him built in 4-piece, what's the name of the set? 4-piece Supersonic, and I have him built in 4-piece Savage, with the idea being that the 4-piece Supersonic set provides a turn meter boost for every buff that gets put on the enemy team. Very useful on that champion because he kind of likes the enemy team to have buffs. And temporal chains will then slow the enemy's speed. So it's quite possible if I run, say, Kaja Warlord, Narcisse, Wukong, and Korra, and they run, say, an Arbiter, Sifi, Yumiko sort of style team, I could perhaps ban the Yumiko. The Arbiter and the Kaja, or the Arbiter and the Sifi, could take their turns, give their team a bunch of buffs, which would boost the White King Narcisse. My Ankora would, or my Kaja would also boost the White King Narcisse, and then he would actually be able to cut in and go ahead of their nukers, thanks to this blessing slowing down the enemy team and his set bonus giving him turn meter boost. That's the kind of idea. I may change that in the future, but anyway, in case anyone's curious, that's why we went with this Temporal Chains blessing. Okay, so like I said, we want to build the Wight Queen Ankora in 4-turn Stoneskin or 2-turn Stoneskin and high resistance. Now, there's a few things that make this a little more complicated. I have a number of Stoneskin accessories for the Knights Revenant faction, and so I have the option basically to either run 5-piece Stoneskin up here with 1 accessory, or I could run 6-piece Stoneskin here and put in some other accessories. Now, one of the things the optimizer is not going to be able to do is decide whether or not I want to use things like reaction accessories. I probably am not going to do that because I think it would cut into my stats too much. I might use 1 actually because I think I have a good reaction. Actually, I'm going to set this in the optimizer. I have a really good reaction resistance banner with resistance ascension and, you know, triple speed. So this is a great banner for a champion. Oh, you can't see that. Hold on. Let's move this over here for now. Okay, so that's the idea. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up the Hell Hades optimizer here, and I've already set the masteries, set the blessing. Like I said, you want to get those done first. In case you want to see the masteries again, they're just right here. Main thing is we want to make sure we have the resistance mastery because I'm trying to get as much resistance as possible. We're going to upload that to the website, which is going to show up right here. Now, the next thing you want to do is set priorities for all the champions that you are using in different parts of the game, and basically set which things are going to be allowed to be stolen and which things are not. So if I look at my locked priorities champions, my highest priority champions are my arena core supports. These are the ones I mentioned earlier. Kaja, Arbiter, Warlord. I do not want to steal any gear off any of these champions because they are super, super important for my arena stuff. If I go down to tier priority 2, I have a lot of arena nukers in here, and mostly these champions get used for arena. Some of them are key Hydra, Nightmare Hydra, and other things, but these are sort of champions that I most of the time don't want to steal gear from, but sometimes I'd be willing to do it. In this case, I actually am going to be willing to steal gear from these champions. Particularly, I think I'm going to be getting gear off of Pytheon, who is high resistance Stoneskin, very high resistance Stoneskin, and probably Ultimate Death Knight, who actually isn't on this list, but he also is high resistance, well, medium resistance, slow Stoneskin. So we need to set the champion priorities correctly so that we know who we're allowed to take gear off and who we're not allowed to take gear off. From there, we go into the optimizer, and if you click the optimize button down here, come up to configure, you can tell it which champions we are not allowed to steal gear from, which champions we are. In this case, we are not allowed to steal gear off of the priority 1 champions. It'll auto-populate with the blessings in here, and it'll select the relevant ones. So we have Defiant, Unshakable, Resistance, all that kind of stuff. Okay, from there, we said we want to make this champion. Oops. Oh, hold on. I have to reset that now because I want to do this from scratch. We want to make this champion super high resistance, and we want it to be in 4-piece Stoneskin. So we need to make sure we set the glyphs that we're going to allow it to use. I'm going to be willing to use my absolute best resistance glyphs on this champion because I'm going for super high resistance. I want it to have some tankiness, but I don't want to spend my best glyphs making it tanky because I need my best glyphs to make champions like... I don't want to waste all my max slot HP glyphs on this champion when it means I couldn't put those glyphs onto a champion that might be in bolster set, which really needs the max HP, for example. So I'm going to set my glyphs here to 4 for HP percent and 4 for defense. I have plenty of these, what are they, 3-star glyphs or whatever that can get these stats, so that's fine. Same thing with speed. I don't want to use my best speed glyphs on this champion because I don't need her to be very fast. In fact, I kind of want her to be slow because I want her, if anything, to go after my Narcies so that she can reset the ability. Also, by making her really slow, it means I can max her resistance a lot higher, which is going to be really important for resisting very high accuracy lockout in particular. Okay, so we set our glyphs. We've set the champions that we're allowed to build. We need to do a few more things. Slots. We want to make sure we're maxing the artifact accessory ascension bonus. And then we have to decide how we want to go about setting up the different ascension stats. So the most important things we need for this particular build that we're making is resistance on the chest piece and resistance on the banner. Again, we're trying to go for maximum possible resistance. I am going to want to get things like HP and defense and that kind of stuff, but I'm a little unsure. I probably have higher priority champions to spend my dust on right now than Ankora. So I don't think I'm going to set any of the other artifact ascension bonuses. I'm going to make it use the current ones that are already on the gear because, like I said, I need to get other things that are higher, more important for me right now than Ankora. But in the future, you could set these to HP and defense probably on pretty much all these, maybe speed on the boots. But realistically, we're going to be using some sort of defensive ascension on the boots too, because it gives you more value than speed. And you really only want speed if you need to go really, really fast. And we're not doing that on this build. So for now, we're just going to set resistance on both of these. And then we're going to go into sets. So, like I said, we have a few options. I want to explore these. The first thing I'm going to do is we're going to run Stone Skin, if I can find it in here. Right there. And we need to make sure we're setting a 6-piece bonus. Now, you remember I showed you that I have a Stone Skin ring that I could use on this champion. I want to set it to use, but for now we're going to ignore that ring because it's not the best ring. It's an attack-based ring, which obviously is not what we want. I also know that I have things like a supersonic ring, and the supersonic 1-piece set gives you resistance. So by using that one supersonic ring, I could potentially get more resistance on the champion, which would be really nice. However, oops, not Stone Skin. I definitely know that I want to reuse that reaction banner that's on my Dreng because I know it's one of the best banners I could use for this. It's reaction or resistance with resistance ascension, and it's got a triple speed roll, which is going to make it easy to get a lot of other stats on the champion, like put them in HP and defense, percent boots, things like that. We won't need to get speed anywhere else if we can get a lot of it from the banner. So that's what we're going to do right here. We won't set any of these other accessories to exclude or anything like that. 6-piece Stone Skin, 1-piece reaction. Okay, now we need to set the stats. The speed here is a little bit arbitrary. You can choose whatever you want. I'm going to set her at about 200. I might explore this. We can test up and down and see how it affects the different options. But for now, we're going to, like I said, we want her kind of slow. And I want her... One of the things I'm probably also going to do with her is pair her with a Wukong. So having her kind of slow is actually a little bit beneficial in the sense that we don't necessarily need her to be taking a lot of turns if it means that she can just sit around in that long duration Stone Skin and give Wukong a chance to revive as well. So anyway, that's the moral of the story. We're going slow right now. Next thing we want to do is set the resistance to the maximum priority on this build. What we're trying to do here is we're just trying to get a baseline for what is the highest possible resistance I can build, ignoring any goal to get any defensive stats at all. I don't care if it's a flat attack, glove. If it has the most resistance, it has the most resistance. Give me that. What is the highest resistance I can possibly get? And that's going to give us our baseline, which we can work with. So let's go ahead and run the optimizer right here, and it's going to return a build pretty quickly. And what you can see is that the highest possible resistance build, oops, hold on. Did I not set that right? Oh, I did set that right. Okay, let's look at this build real quick. This is higher than I thought it was. Yeah, there we go. Highest possible resistance build I can make is 934 resistance. Not too bad, right? Not too bad. Now, the effective HP on this build is only 305,000. Effective HP is a little bit of a misnomer in PvP. It's fine in PvE, but in PvP, there's a lot of champions that ignore defense, which means you get less value out of defense than you do out of HP. So you can't take this effective HP number as gospel, but this gives us a baseline. We know that we can get a maximum of 934 resistance using this build. Now, one thing you'll notice is we have that reaction, or not that reaction, that supersonic ring being used on this build right here. So I want to explore what would it look like if I change this to a Stone Skin, since I know I have one, and I set this to 5 here, just to get an idea. And we'll run it, and we'll see what our resistance looks like. So we have 936. What was the last one? That was pretty close either way, wasn't it? It was 900 and I want to say 915 or 936. Yeah, let's clear this real quick. And I'm just going to run it back and see what the other one was. I forgot. 934. So pretty close either way, to be honest. So you know what we'll do is we will probably explore the effective HP since it doesn't seem like this is going to have a massive change in our resistance. So there's our baseline for resistance. We know we can get 934. Now you kind of need to decide like what is the minimum value you would be willing to accept off of this? How much resistance are you going to pull off this max that you could possibly get to exchange for tankiness? So you can mess around with this, but if this was me, I would probably set this to a minimum of 900. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, we know that we can get 934 or 936. Let's say, give me at least 900, but then spend the rest of your priority maximizing HP with a little bit of defense. We also want Ankora to have high HP because her shield is based off her base HP. So we definitely want to prioritize HP more than defense in this particular case. So that's why I'm going with balance mode with HP and defense instead of going changing the goal to survival mode, which would just optimize for effective HP. But you could do that too if you wanted to. So we're going to go ahead and clear that. Oops, we'll leave this, honestly, probably about 50 is fine. And we'll run it again. Okay, and there we go. Now we have a new build. It's 907 resistance, but the effective HP has gone up significantly. So we're up to what, 415,000. I can't remember what the exact HP number in that last build was, but I know that the tankiness of this build has gone up significantly, and we only gave about 20 accuracy to do that. If we look at what kind of gear it's using, we can see that we are running this. I mean, all this stuff right here. This stone skin on everything. We're pulling off some stone skin off of our Emic, off of our Ultimate Death Knight. Actually, surprisingly, not off of our Python. We've got this beautiful chest piece right here with this resistance plus resistance, double roll speed, and a double roll in HP. It's a mythical piece. Beautiful piece. And then interesting over here, we have... And actually, we have a speed ascension on this. Now, I assume it's probably not ideal to have a speed ascension on this. And we also haven't rolled this up either. So this would be a good one to roll because we could potentially get another resistance roll onto that. But that's pretty nice. And we're still going back to using the supersonic ring. If we look at this, we can do the same logic that we did before where we changed out one of the rings to see. So we have 90,000 health, 3,700 defense for about 415,000 effective HP. If we change this back into stone skin and we drop this to 5, let's see how that plays out. We've got a 395 effective HP, a little bit more actual HP, a little bit less defense, a little bit less resistance. So overall, I think the other build is probably a little bit better. We just go ahead and use that supersonic ring. That makes sense. A supersonic ring for the one set bonus provides a lot of resistance, 20 resistance for just that ring. So we'll go ahead and do that. And that is honestly pretty much how we do the build. So we can clear this out. We can rerun it again. And there we go. That's how I build this champion. What I would do from here on is, and what I'm going to do right after this video is go ahead and just throw all this gear on Ankora. I will have to rebuild my Ultimate Death Knight after this. I thought I was going to have to steal a bunch of gear off Python, but it doesn't look like that's the case, which is kind of nice because I use Python still. I use the Ultimate Death Knight as well. We can pull this off. I guess there's one more interesting thing that we could do just to explore. The rest of these are not going to affect our resistance at all because none of them actually go on resistance, but we could say set our HP and defense on all of our ascensions and let it min-max all of that. And let's just see how that affects our potential max HP. Let's run it again. And there you go. So we got about 50,000 more effective health, maybe a little bit less than that, 30,000 more effective health off of that, 97,000 HP and 3,700 defense with the same resistance. Resistance didn't change. And honestly, it didn't really change too much. I think it changed, this glove to be HP instead of defense. I think it was on defense before. And obviously we put the HP and defense stuff on the rest of this. But yeah, anyway, it's just another way to use the Hell Hades optimizer. So yeah, that's the process for actually building a champion like this. If you're interested in seeing Wight Queen and Narcisse in action, I probably will be using them from time to time in my live arena videos, so subscribe to the channel. If you're interested, I might be willing or interested in doing a 3v3 kind of showcase next 3v3 reset, or just general arena. But general arena, I don't do platinum pushes, so just farming people in gold 4 is not really interesting. But 3v3, it could actually be fun. So if you want that, let me know. And I think that's going to be it. I will see you all in the next one. Cheers.